Darren just said he's having an IT issue. He'll be here in a sec. Sorry, Councillor Morale.
All right, am I being heard now? Yep, okay. Councillor Morell, is he in the room?
He's just said he's having an IT issue. He'll be here in a minute.
Oh.
Here he is.
Oh, I believe he's joined us. Councillor Morell? Councillor Morell, can you just confirm you are present?
I am present, but excellent. I'm getting no visuals at the moment. I can hear you perfectly though.
That's fine. Excellent, excellent. In that case, then I will begin the meeting. And good evening and welcome everyone to this virtual meeting of the Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Martin Seaton and I'm Chair of this committee. And before we start the meeting, I have a few announcements to make about the meeting rules. This meeting is being live streamed on Southwark Council's YouTube channel, and a recording of it will be available after the meeting. Please note that all guests will have their microphones muted when they join the meeting. You'll be asked to remain on mute unless I ask you to speak, for example, in a 3-minute slot reserved for objectors, the applicants, supporters and ward councillors. Please do not switch your microphone on until I give you permission to do so. Attendees who are using the microphone dialing function on a smartphone are also muted. And if I ask you to speak, please dial *6 to unmute yourselves. To ensure this virtual meeting runs smoothly, only one individual will be allowed to speak at any time. Any person speaking must be permitted to finish what they're saying without interruption. If I request that an individual stop speaking, they should do so immediately. Interruptions may result in you being disconnected from the meeting. If a member of the committee wishes to speak, could I please ask them to indicate via the raised hand symbol on the message board? Members of the public are reminded that the message board is not for public use. Any messages left on the message board by members of the public will be disregarded by committee members. Bearing in mind that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording will be available on the Council's YouTube channel, if you are planning to speak, you may choose to switch off your camera so that only your voice will be heard. Members of the public who are disconnected from the meeting due to technical difficulties should use the link or dialing instructions they were sent initially to return to the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to record, screenshot, or tweet the public proceedings of the meeting. A copy of the Council protocol for reporting and filming is available on the Council's website. During the meeting, members of the committee will not access the internet except as it relates to the official business of the meeting, send or receive emails, text, message, or tweet concerning the business of the committee to anyone outside the meeting. Please note that members may be accessing the agenda papers via the internet. We'll be taking a 5-minute screen break every hour and reconvening thereafter. I would now like to ask officers to introduce themselves and explain their role at this meeting. And I'll begin with the planning officers. If I can begin with Simon Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Simon Bevan. I'm the Director of Planning, here to advise the committee on any planning issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Dipesh Patel.
Thank you, Chair. Dipesh Patel, I am Manager of the Major Applications Team in Planning, and I'm here to advise on the Stars House application.
Thank you. Michael Takaris.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Michael Takaris. I'm Group Manager Design and Conservation and here to advise on any design and conservation matters in relation to Stars House.
Thank you. Neil Lobster.
Chair, Neil hasn't attended as that we
indeed.
were not expecting that item to be covered
Absolutely.
this evening.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Similarly, if you've got John Kissy down on your list of officers.
Indeed, John Kiss, indeed.
Yep.
Thank you. In that case, then, can I go to Vendetta Gambill?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My name is Vendela Gamble. I'm the planning officer in the Majors and New Homes team, and I'll be presenting the item on Styles House.
Thank you very much. And Alex Oyebade?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Alex Oyebade. I'm team leader transport planning. I'll be advising on transport and highway aspect of this development.
Very good. Thank you very much. If I may now move on to the legal officer, John Gorst.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you for that. My name is John Gorst. I'm a solicitor with Southwark Council, and I'll be advising on legal and governance matters during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I now move on to the clerk, Tim Murtagh?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Tim Murtagh. I'm the constitutional officer and clerk of this committee. I'm here to minute the meeting and to advise on the procedures for hearing the items and on decision making.
Thank you very much indeed. I believe I've now covered all officers. I'll now move on to the agenda. First item of business is apologies. I do not believe there are apologies. We have a full house. I'll therefore move on to item 2, confirmation of voting members. I will now ask members of the committee to confirm that they are voting members of this committee. And I'll begin with Councillor Morell. Can you confirm you are a voting member?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm a voting member.
Thank you. Councillor Livingstone. Can you confirm you're a voting
Chair.
member?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm I am a voting member.
Very good. Councillor O'Brien, can you confirm you're a voting member?
Voting member, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Soam, can you confirm you're a voting member?
Yes, I'm a voting member, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead, can you confirm you're a voting member?
Voting member, Chair.
Very good. Councillor Whittam, can you confirm you are a voting member?
Yes, Chair, voting member.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, can you confirm you are a voting member?
Yes, voting member, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And I can also confirm I'm Councillor Martin Seaton, and I'm also a voting member of this committee. I'll now move on to item 3 of business, which is notification of any item of business which the chair deems urgent, and the following items, additional documents have been circulated before the meetings. And members, can you just confirm you are in receipt of the members' pack? And of course, it also includes the addendum report relating to item 7. Can you confirm?
Confirmed.
Yes, Chair. Confirmed.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. In that case, I'll move on to item 4, which is disclosure of interest and dispensation. Does any member wish to declare any interest or dispensation in respect of any item or issue to be considered at this meeting? Are there any declarations?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. In that case, now move on to item 5. Can I now note pages, this is minutes, pages 6 to 10 of the main agenda pack. Can we prove that these minutes are a correct record of the meeting held on the 21st of November 2020? Are you content?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I know at some point the legal officer will insist that I have to sign them every page, I believe. Anyway, there we go, eventually. I'll now move on, if I may, to item 6. This is the release of £400,000 of Section 106 funds to support the delivery of the Lost PEC Flood Alleviation and Environmental Enhancement Scheme. And of course, members, this is pages 11 to 47 of the main agenda pack. I understand that the department wishes that this item be deferred. Can this confirm that that is the case?
Yes, Chair. There were some questions raised about the details of this proposal, which I felt it was necessary to take away and come back to you with some more detailed information to ensure well-informed decision-making on this matter. So we'd like to bring this back to a future meeting of the committee, if that's okay with members. Thank you.
Fair enough. I'm happy to propose the deferment by way of resolution to a future. This item is deferred to a future meeting. I'm happy to propose. Is there a seconder?
Second.
I'll second for you, Chair.
I think I heard Councillor Whittam first. Thank you. All right. In that case, I'll now move to the vote. Am I supposed I've got to do this by names? I suppose I'll do that. I will do it by name. So can I just confirm that Councillor Morell, are you content that to vote for, against, or abstain the motion?
Thank you, Chair. For.
Thank you. Councillor Livingstone, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, for, against, or abstain the motion?
Chair.
I didn't hear. Councillor O'Brien?
For, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Soames, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Whittam, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
And of course, I'm Councillor Martin Seaton, and I vote for the motion to defer. Thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. Now, I'll now go on to item 7 on our agenda, and this is development management. The next item of business concerns the determination of planning applications. I'd like to remind everyone of the committee's guidance and conduct of business. Officers will present the report, outline their recommendations, and answer questions raised by the committee. If present and wishing to speak, the following may then address the committee for no more than 3 minutes each. A spokesperson representing any objector to the application, and by now you need to identify a single spokesperson. If more than one objector wishes to speak, the time will then be divided accordingly within the 3-minute time slot, followed by the applicants or their agent, and then indeed followed by a spokesperson representing any supporter of the application who live within 100 meters of the development site. And last but not least, a ward councillor representing any in the area affected by the proposal. Each speaker should restrict their comments to the planning aspects of the proposal and should avoid repeating information which is already in the report. The meeting is not a hearing where all participants present evidence to be cross-examined by other participants. At the end of each representation, the committee may ask questions of the presenter. Speakers should lead the committee on subjects on which they would welcome further questioning. Ward members in attendance and those nominated to speak on behalf of objectors, supporters, and applicants may be asked to make further contributions in case any issues need to be clarified after they've addressed the meeting. This is not an opportunity, of course, to take part in the debate of the committee. After receiving all submissions, the committee will debate the applications and consider the recommendations. This is a council committee meeting which is open to the public, and there should be no interruption from members of the public. Finally, I would like everyone present to know that although the planning committee comprises members of different political parties, we are not politically whipped. Our decisions are made in accordance with the Council's planning policy and based upon the information contained within the relevant reports, together with the consultation responses and any verbal submissions made today. How we approach these applications set out in the Development Management Report at item 8, and if members are happy to note that report, we'll move on to considering the planning applications. Are you content, members?
Yes, Chair. Very
good. Thank you very much. In that case, then I'll now move on to item 7.1, which is Styles House, Hatfield, Southwark, SE1 8DF, pages members 48 to 124 of the agenda pack and pages 1 to 8 of the addendum report. Can I ask the considering officer to introduce herself and make your presentation?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Vendela. I'm a planning officer in the major applications and new homes team, and I'll be presenting this case this evening. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. Are you able to see that now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So before I begin my presentation, I would just like to draw your attention to some minor points for clarification on the report. So firstly, there was a minor typo in the development description where tenants management organization hall should omit an OR in the front of the word hall. And you can read that here on this slide. Secondly, the location and the layout of the children's play space forms part of the approved landscaping details and will fall as part of the hard and soft landscaping within condition 24. So this is not included in a separate condition. And thirdly, condition 12 in the draft recommendations refers to the protection for the use class of the community space to be restricted to D1, D2 use. This should be amended to F2 or local community use following the changes to the use class order. I'll also talk through some other points in the addendum, which refer to some minor corrections, some late representations, and amendments to the conditions. So a first point of clarification is that the Southwark Overstation development, which I will refer to in my presentation in its abbreviated form as the OSD, is interrelated with this scheme through an agreed land swap. And this will not be secured within the Section 106 for the Styles House development. The OSD will be assessed and determined independently from the scheme. It should be noted that a Styles House permission cannot be implemented by nature of the land swap agreement if the OSD is not granted approval. However, they are to be assessed separately and independently for their own planning merits, and decision on the scheme will not prejudice a decision on the Southwark OSD when that comes forward. Secondly, one additional representation was made in relation to the construction impacts of the associated application at the Overstation development and its proposed size and massing, bringing the total number of representations on this application from 11 to 12, where 4 representations were in support and 8 rather than 7 objections, which I have in my presentation and in the report, have been received. So in response to this, I will reiterate that the scheme is treated independently from the OSD and should not influence the decision on either scheme. Thirdly, an internal consultation comment was received from the Council's environmental protection team, which highlighted previous noise complaints regarding the operations of bars and restaurants on Isabella Street, which is to the north of the site. And an additional condition was added in response to this to more appropriately manage the licensing and noise nuisance regimes of sound emission from the community hall. Fourthly, additional information was provided in regards to a revised energy strategy dated January 2021, following discussions between the applicant and the GLA. This revised energy strategy contained information on solar gain and the upgraded mechanical ventilation heat recovery with an enhanced specification to achieve the required B-lean stage required savings. And as a result, the energy savings were increased from 10.9% to 11.9% in the B-lean stage for the domestic element. And the B-green stage increased in efficiency from 37.5% to 38.2% for the whole site. The site-wide saving is now 50.1%, which is reflected in a reduced carbon offset figure. The reduction being from 47,424 pounds originally presented in the officer's report to 45,799 pounds and 50 pence as a result of this revised energy figure. Other minor points to raise were in relation to the management of the community space, which will be managed by the Styles House TMO. The location of the electricity substation was amended and pulled back into the site from the abutting northern site's vehicle entrance. Therefore, details of this are not required to be secured through conditions. And the wording on a number of conditions have also been updated. So these changes are minor, such that the recommendation remains that planning permission be granted, subject to conditions and the completion of the Section 106 agreement. So I'll now proceed with my presentation, if that's all right by the chair.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here to present Styles House Estate, which is a council housing scheme following a land swap agreement between Southwark Council and TfL, which was presented to Cabinet on the 30th of April 2019, which sought to maximize the development opportunities for both the adjacent Southwark London Underground Station and the Styles House Estate. The Southwark OSD development is currently being assessed through a separate planning application and will be referred to a separate planning committee. I want to stress that while the applications are interrelated, a decision on this scheme will not prejudice the assessment of the Southwark OSD. However, the build-out of this scheme, if approved, is contingent on the approval and build-out of the Southwark OSD. This will not be secured through a Section 106, as any permission on this site would be void if the OSD is not approved. So, planning application 20 AP 0969 seeks permission to demolish the existing platform building, presently providing 912 square meters of B1 office use space, and is currently in temporary use as a performance art building. It also seeks the demolition of 8 studio chalet units, the removal of one bedroom unit on the ground floor of the existing Styles house, the demolition of 9 garages, a substation, a storage and boiler room building. The proposed development includes a new tall building of part 13, part 14 story residential use comprising of 25 new social rented units, a new substation, a new community center building, car and cycle parking, a new boiler house, landscaping, access, and associated works. So this is an aerial view of the site, and the site is bound to the north by Isabella Street, which provides pedestrian access to a number of railway arches in retail and restaurant uses. The site is bound by the Cut to the south and Hatfields to the west, which forms the boundary between Southwark and Lambeth. Jones Street separates the site from the Southwark Underground Station site, which again is being considered under separate planning application with the reference number 20 AP 1189, which is located to the east of the site, and beyond that is Blackfriars Road. So this slide shows the new ownership boundaries following the agreed land swap with TfL, where the planning application boundary is shown by a solid red line. The buildings to be demolished are marked in solid pink, and the existing Styles house, which will be retained, is marked in solid gray. The green dash shows the land in TfL ownership, and the blue dash is land in the ownership of Southwark Council. And the overlapped blue and green dash is part of the agreed land swap, which is set out in the April 2019 Cabinet report. So this slide shows the proposed site plan and the proposed location of the new blocks. The proposed site layout constitutes of the new part 13, part 14 story residential building to be located on the northeastern corner of the site, where the ground floor comprises of cycle storage, a community room, and a general storage room. The proposed 2-story TMO hall in community use class is placed fronting the Cut to encourage an active frontage to the site. A new pedestrian access route is provided in north-south orientation, proposed adjacent to this TMO hall entrance from the Cut, and will improve accessibility to the site. Finally, the substation is relocated to the western edge of the site, adjacent the vehicular access point from Hatfields. So for policy context of site designations, the site is located within the Bankside Borough and London Bridge strategic cultural areas, opportunity area, and district town centers. It's in the air quality management area and the central activity zone. The platform Southwark building is identified in the Blackfriars Road SBD as a potential development site and in the draft New Southwark plan as part of the wider Southwark Station OSD site allocation, which is NSP 17. The site is not located in or close to a conservation area or close to any statutory listed buildings. The surrounding area is mixed use in nature with commercial, retail, and entertainment uses generally occupying ground floor units and residential units on the upper floors. A number of substantial office buildings are located along the nearby Blackfriars Road. So in terms of uses, the principle of a new residential and community use on site is acceptable and in support of policy designations. The loss of the office floor space from the platform building is acceptable contingent on the substantial uplift of office floor space currently proposed as part of the OSD, which again is being considered under a separate planning application. As these sites are interrelated, this permission could not be implemented without the approval of the OSD, and this would mitigate the non-compliant loss in office floor space that is provided on this site. So I'll now take you through some photos of the site. As you can see, the existing platform building is roughly 3 stories in height and is low rise for its context. It's this black building on the existing photograph. The image to the right shows the proposed tall residential building as viewed from the existing access route from Hatfields. And as part of the proposed development, the entrance to the existing Styles house will also be improved, and this is an image of that. As you can see from the view from the Cut, the existing chalet units proposed to be demolished are roughly 2 stories in height. standing relatively low rise in context to the existing Styles house. The proposed TMO hall and community center will be located on the cut frontage to allow for improved active frontage along the cut and a new north-south access point into the Styles house development. So this is a view of the platform building from JOAN Street, which again is roughly 3 stories in height. The access point from JOAN Street is proposed to be closed off as part of the separate Southwark OSD application to allow for a 10-meter wide no-build zone in between the 2 sites. So that is this Styles house proposal and the adjacent Southwark underground station development. And this is proposed as hard standing or public realm. However, the closure of JOAN Street is considered in the separate Southwark OSD application and not part of this application. So this is the proposed building heights, which indicate that the proposed new residential building stands roughly 3 to 4 stories taller than the existing Styles house, and around 6 stories shorter than the proposed Southwark OSD, which has been inserted for context in this image, as the 2 schemes would only be delivered together or not at all. So again, this is a proposed view from the north elevation. The report submitted provides a full tall building assessment, identifying the location of the tower at a point of landmark significance in relation to the stepping down from the proposed taller OSD facing onto Blackfriars Road. Secondly, the design is of highest architectural standards and appropriate to the site context with a slim form and an interesting silhouette. It comprises of high quality ribbed terracotta cladding, which provides a robust and distinctive character to the building. So this scheme relates well to its surroundings, particularly at street level, including the TMO on the cut frontage and an improved public realm through new access points and connections. The proposal contributes to the London skyline positively, where there are no impacts on surrounding views and where the slender character of the tower, the gaps between the separate buildings, as well as the stepped arrangement of the distinctive form consolidates the emerging cluster. In terms of impacts of neighboring amenity, adequate distances between buildings have been provided, which allow for minimal impact of daylight and sunlight on neighboring residents. The daylight and sunlight report outlines transgressions to the vertical sky component, which I refer to as VSC, only for one of the surrounding buildings, which is the nearby existing Styles house building. Here, 20.9% of windows are non-compliant against BRE guidance for VSC. However, the skyline assessment, also known as NSL, has no transgressions on any of the surrounding buildings, and therefore suggesting overall minimal impacts of daylight and sunlight. So the proposed scheme makes a positive contribution to the landscape, providing allotments, a dog play area, seating, a green wall, garden features, a memorial garden, and sheltered spaces, providing a varied and high quality landscaping. A play area has been designated for 0 to 4-year-olds, which has also been provided in the agreed landscaping plans. 1 category B tree and 9 category C trees are required to be removed as a result of the proposal. However, 10 new trees will be planted as part of the soft landscaping strategy for the site, which will be secured by condition. So this slide shows the breakdown of the existing and proposed communal amenity space, where the proposal has led to a reduction in allotment space, which is marked in green on the plan, of 160 square meters. There is, however, a net increase of 389 square meters communal amenity space, which is marked in orange, and 43 square meters is designated as play space, which is marked in yellow. So this leads to a net gain of 272 square meters of additional communal amenity space to support the proposed development. The red marked area on this plan represents the shared space which falls outside of the site boundary and has not been calculated as part of the communal amenity figures. So this red marked area is comprises of the 401 square meter no build zone for hard surfacing, which is detailed in the separate Southwark OSD application. So the proposed dwelling mix was informed by a housing needs assessment from the existing residents of Styles House. And the Styles House TMO surveyed the current residents of the chalet units and the existing Styles House, to which 90% responded to the surveys, and that comprises of 38 out of 42 of the leaseholders and tenants completing the survey. The findings indicated that 80% of current residents were in need of one-bed units, 18 of which would be needing one-bed wheelchair accessible units. However, a note was made in the report that the 18% does not reflect a need for fully adaptable wheelchair units, as those respondents required varying levels of accessibility. Secondly, 15% of respondents required two-bed units, 6% of which required two-bed wheelchair accessible units, where again, the same caveat was stated. 2 of the respondents required 3 and 4 beds. However, these respondents are currently living in overcrowded accommodation and are waiting for housing elsewhere with greater urgency than the potential completion of this proposed new building. So the proposed dwelling mix comprises of 88% one-bed units, 12% of which are fully accessible wheelchair units, and 12% two-bed units, which is in close alignment with the responses of the housing needs assessment. However, it must be stated that the proposed dwelling mix on site is not compliant with the new Southwark Plan's family housing policy. The proposed dwelling mix has been designed around the future users of the site, comprising of existing Styles House residents and specifically single or couple occupants. It reflects current assessed needs rather than policy compliant dwelling mix levels, which has to be weighed on balance with other benefits of the scheme. So a note on the proposal numbers. The new tall building comprises of 25 gross new units. This comprises of 20 net affordable units because out of the 8 chalet proposed to be demolished and the one bed in the existing Styles House to be reverted to planned, 4 of these are not currently in social rent. Therefore, there's a difference in the figures where the total net units is 16 against the 9 units demolished. The total net affordable units is 20 due to the existing breakdown of the tenure of the units to be demolished. So as part of the land swap agreement, some existing Styles House residents, including those who have bought their properties under right to buy, may be given the opportunity to move to the new residential building. The final location of the affordable homes will therefore be agreed following discussions between the council and the Styles House TMO. The new affordable units may replace existing shared ownership units within the existing Styles House. So the logistics of this would be determined post-planning, and overall the scheme will provide an additional 25 new units, 20 net affordable homes, and 16 net units overall. So I'll now go through the floor plans of the proposed new building. Here, the ground floor of the new building provides some community space, some storage, and cycle parking. And the upper floors comprises of the residential units, which have been assessed as providing good quality of accommodation with sufficient storage space. The balconies range from 6.2 square meters to 7.2 square meters, which is in a shortfall of the 10 square meters of private amenity space requested in the Southwark's residential design standards. However, the shortfall of 73.48 square meters of private amenity space has been found in the net uplift of communal amenity space. Furthermore, all units are dual and triple aspect. The gray-green color of the plan indicates the location of the wheelchair units. The pale yellow-green color indicates one-bed units. And then here you can see the green color, which shows a 2-bed unit. And a shared terrace in dark green is proposed on the 11th floor, and communal rooms and guest rooms are marked in orange. And these have been provided for the use of residents in response to resident consultations. Both buildings have proposed green roofs for biodiversity, and this is the proposed plans for the new TMO space, which comprises of a double height function room, a separate kitchen, office, and storage facilities. This shows the existing Styles House where the boiler room in blue and the one bed to be removed as part of the proposal is marked in yellow. And this will be converted to planned an air source heat pump for the TMO and refuse storage. So as mentioned in the addendum, there was a slight update to the energy saving figures following the discussions with the GLA and a revised energy strategy. So these figures include the final figures of carbon saving across each of the energy hierarchies. The final site-wide total includes savings of 50.1%, and the remaining will be covered through carbon offset payment, which would be secured in the legal agreement. So this scheme was resident-led and had strong resident involvement through each of its design stages. 300 consultation letters were sent out as part of this application and 11 responses received, with 7 objections and 4 letters in support. The main objections raised included concerns over reduction to neighboring amenity, which has been assessed in the daylight sunlight assessment. As mentioned in earlier, daylight sunlight impacts are contained to the transgressions of VSC in the existing Styles house. Since these units all have acceptable NSL, the experienced difference in daylight sunlight is not significant. Overlooking is mitigated due to the oblique angles between the existing and new Styles house and the distance between the 2 buildings. Secondly, environmental concerns raised were addressed in the report and secured by condition to ensure mitigation of negative impacts as a result of increased traffic or noise. The benefits for the existing Styles house residents is seen to be appropriate, and the tree and landscaping plans are positive and secured through condition. The design, architecture, and site layout are seen as positive attributes to the scheme as assessed by council officers, and wheelchair units will be fully accessible in compliance with wheelchair standards. So in conclusion, the proposal would provide good quality, affordable housing, improved community space and landscaping in line with the council objectives to increase council homes in the borough. The development is in an appropriate location for a tall building, being located within the central activity zone and an emerging cluster of tall buildings, as well as providing high quality amenity space and relationship with public realm. The largest planning policy transgressions relate to the lack of family units and the loss of the office floor space within the central activity zone. However, the proposed dwelling mix meets the housing needs of residents of the existing Styles house as shown through the housing needs assessment, which identifies the proposed dwelling mix as appropriate to the context and future occupiers of the site. The provision of new office floor space would be sufficiently met through the related Southwark OSD currently being assessed under a separate planning application. So no impacts and or conflicts with planning policies have been identified that couldn't adequately be dealt with by planning obligation or condition. And in regard to this, officers feel that this scheme should be recommended grant of planning permission subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Members, if you could use your digital hand, if you could indicate you wish to speak, ask a question. Councillor O'Brien, first of all. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. You flashed past a comment regarding existing leaseholders, and I just got the impression that there might have been some sort of agreement or offer to existing leaseholders to move into the new properties when they're built. I'm sorry, I just caught that bit, and I think maybe could you flesh that out for us and explain what the detail of that is?
So my understanding is that existing leaseholders have been given the option to move into one of the new buildings, but the details of this have to be agreed later. And I think there's still discussions ongoing as to how this would be kind of secured within the legal agreement and so on.
So it would be a planning matter and it would be secured by section 106, is that right?
I don't believe it is a planning matter. I believe it's more in relation to housing and kind of the process by which the allocation of who gets kind of the first dibs of the new development and how that works.
Chair, maybe John could comment on that. I don't know. I'm confused how this works.
All right. I would on this occasion, but I thought the answer was pretty clear. But John,
it wasn't clear at all.
Well, all right, John Gorse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Yeah, I don't see this as a planning matter. You know, that's a matter between the existing leaseholders and the council as the owner of the block to arrange for them to be moved in accordance with their wishes. So I don't see that that's a point that that planners can look upon as a material planning consideration. I think it's something that can remain with the landlord, i.e. the council.
That's fine. Thank you very much indeed. I'll take members in this sequence. Councillor Livingstone, Councillor Soames, Councillor Whittam.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two quick questions. The first one is just to confirm, as members were briefed at the session before, or to brief us on this, that the station over, sorry, the Southwark OSD is completely non-residential. Just so that we understand there's no residential linkage between this development and the other, so to confirm that. The second question was really just to probe a little bit the point about the bedroom mix. Whilst I appreciate that they're overcrowded households and they're likely to move before this is built, and the explanation you gave, clearly that means that somewhere else in Southwark's housing stock, they will be taking the 3 or 4 bed property, which are the ones where we've got the biggest issues in terms of supply. So just really to understand that point slightly more. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So your first point in regards to residential use in the Overstation development, my understanding is there's no residential use proposed in that development. Second point in regard to family housing units on site. So I believe it was looked if some of the units could be family housing during the design scheme, the design of the scheme, and kind of the site constraints. We weren't able to provide the 10 square meters of required private amenity space, which is required of family units due to the location and due to the constraints of the site. So that kind of determined the direction of design.
Right, yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Livingstone. Councillor Soames.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Vandela, for your presentation. I'd just like to receive some further clarity. So the first point that I think I was going to raise was something which Councillor O'Brien has already raised in his question around leaseholders. Could you just tell me, so it's my understanding from the report that current residents that are in the studio flats occupied by the chalets will have the opportunity to transfer to 1-bedroom units in the proposed development. Are they leaseholders? Have they had the right to buy? So, because obviously they would then be moving into a larger property. I'm asking this, and then presumably there would be an increase in the market value of those properties. So is that for later discussion with the council? Can you just comment on that? And then I'd like to know a little bit more about the sort of the housing need assessment. So you said in your concluding remarks that it was resident-led, and you know, not every proposal that comes forward has an associated housing needs assessment, and we know that at the moment with the proposed dwelling mix, it's non-compliant. So was the housing needs assessment instructed by the were the TMO instructed by the council to carry that out? Could you just sort of say a little bit more about how that was developed, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Soames.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So your first question in regards to whether the chalet units had leaseholders, and my understanding they do have some leaseholders. I can't tell you the breakdown of that, but I believe that sorry, that has to do with the kind of why we've offered.
One moment, please. Tim, could you move? Is it possible to mute others who are in the meeting? I see Lewis. I think
try to do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, I'll continue. So there are current leaseholders in the chalet units, and I believe that has to do with the logics as to why they've been offered a place in the new Styles house. I believe in terms of the valuation, that's something that will need to be discussed at a later stage, so that doesn't fall into planning, and is something that will have to come with the legal agreement and how leaseholders would apply to have access to one of these units that comes after planning. So it's not something I've considered in my report. And then in terms of your second question, so I believe that had to do with the housing needs assessment and how that was commissioned. And I believe that was kind of an ongoing discussion with the council. So the council and Styles House TMO, they were the ones who conducted the survey in 2019. So yeah, if there's any other, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Could I suggest that the details of how the units are to be allocated might be a useful question to put to the applicant in this case. I think there are some clear detail. Vendela, sorry, you have answered the question. I think but the applicant could probably fill in some of the detail that members are interested in hearing about.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my recommendation, Councillor Soames.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just ask one? I was a bit perplexed as to how the shared balcony space on the 11th floor, how would that? I was finding it difficult to sort of envisage how that would work in practicalities, and also forgive me if it has already been mentioned. But where would the temporary arts provision, current provision, where would that be relocated to? And also, I didn't get a real sense in the report what the refurbishment on the Styles House and the different sensitivities to that will look like. So yeah, that's it for the minute. Thank you.
I'll hand over to you, but I'm going to encourage members to keep our questions, particularly those which could be handled by the applicants, just think if they could be handled by the applicants.
Yeah, so in terms of the terraces, I think that'll have access, all of the residents of the new building will have access to the terrace on the 11th floor. In terms of the temporary arts kind of performance uses in the platform building, I have to say I'm not sure where they will be relocated to, but since it's in temporary use, we have to treat it as if it is B1 office floor space in planning terms. So that's what we've done in the report. And finally, in terms of the refurbishment of the existing Styles House, the only refurbishment to the actual Styles House building will be the new entrance, and perhaps the applicant as well can kind of expand on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Soames. I'll go to Councillor Whittam, then lastly, but not least, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Whittam.
Yeah, I was interested in the allotment area. Is that going to be located in the same place as it is now? And are the current allotments fully in occupation? And if so, where are the nearest ones for those who will be displaced by this development?
So in terms of the allotments, I believe the proposed new allotments are where the land swap has been agreed. So it's changed from where it currently is. I'm not sure about whether it's in full occupation at the moment, but that might be something to direct towards the applicant as well. Yeah, hopefully that answers.
And are there nearby other ones to take up the shortfall?
I'm not sure about that.
So that goes beyond the report. So it's a question we might put to the applicant anyway. It's someone quite knowledgeable. If I may then, Councillor Whittam, I'll go to Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Whitehead, do you have a quick question?
Yes, it is a quick question, Chair. So I just wanted to check in relation to, in the report, it references some issues in connection with, on paragraphs 48 to 49, about flood and energy concerns that were raised during the consultation process. I just wanted to check if those all been resolved then, so there's no outstanding concerns.
Yeah, so that occurred early on in the planning consultation process, and we provided a revised flood risk assessment which addressed their concerns. So there's no objection held by the Environment Agency at the time, currently.
Thank you.
Very good in that case, then. Thank you very much, Vendetta, for your presentation and responses to members' questions. If I understand that there are no objectors to this item, can I just confirm with Tim that remains correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Very good in that case, then. I'll then move on to the applicant or applicant agents. I understand that there are a number of applicant agents present. James, Adam, Mark Addett, Jay Morton. Who's the speaker, first of all? Quite a few names here.
I am Chair, Dan Taylor.
Oh, Dan. Oh, I see you, Dan. There you are. For some reason, you are the last on the list here. You need to have a discussion with someone about that, I think. There you are. Right here, then. I know you know the rules here, but just to explain, I'll give you 3 minutes to make your presentation. Ideally, your presentation really should lead to on items which you'd like further questioning. And I will indicate when you have 30 seconds remaining. And if you bear me for a moment, I'm getting my technology to work, and it is now set. And you may begin your presentation now.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Dan Taylor, Project Manager in the Regeneration team at Southwark Council. I'm going to split my 3 minutes with Jay Morton, who's the lead architect of the scheme. So as Vendella's kindly set out, the scheme came about as a result of a land swap arrangement with TfL to facilitate the construction of a commercial building over the top of the tube station. It also came about because the TMO was formed and they had a philanthropic aspiration to build council homes in their own estate to tackle the housing crisis. So those two sort of forces came together. We as a council then kind of brought the two sides together. And most importantly, we set up kind of a community-led approach to this project. So we set up a community-led project board, and the community designed their own design brief for the scheme. They themselves procured a development manager. So after a kind of a tender process, we jointly appointed Igloo Regeneration, who are specialists in community-led regeneration projects. They then appointed a design team. And I want to thank the residents because they've worked so hard on this scheme over the last 18 months. They've given up so much of their time, so many of their evenings, their lunch times, to kind of develop the scheme through each of the design stages, and then to consult on the scheme with their local community. And then they wanted to also organise a voluntary ballot. So they didn't have to do a ballot, but they wanted to do a ballot to give themselves the peace of mind that they had a mandate to do this scheme. That was carried out between the 18th and 27th of February last year. Had an amazing turnout, 81%, and 90% of people supported the project proposal. So it's a genuinely resident-led scheme. Zoe from the residents is going to talk more about their approach and why they've got so involved in it. I'm now going to hand over to Jay to say a bit more about the design of the building.
Hi, so the residents' key priorities were retaining their existing views to the north and also maximising their green amenity, which basically resulted in a tall, slender tower proposal with a small footprint to maximise their garden, and also it's located to the northeast of the estate, which keeps those existing views clear. And the TMO hall is positioned on the cut to provide a face to the estate. Both will be finished in ceramic pinky terracotta glazed tiles to blend with the existing tower, with a green accent at the base to accentuate the surrounding greenery, and also at the head to provide a distinctive crown from afar. And then this green glaze finish will follow around the base of the existing tower, which includes an extension containing a shared bin store and also the new improved main entrance. And this is so it will be comparable with the existing building. We will sit together. The aim is, and the shared garden is larger than existing. The allotments are actually in the same place and will maximise biodiversity. And this will be at the heart of the estate, marrying old and new. And we also share Southwark's sustainable aspirations, hence the retention of the existing building. And as a team, we are researching the lowest carbon options for the superstructure, which will include steel or concrete with CLT floors, but also perhaps off-site precast solutions. And we'll also be considering embodied carbon.
Stop. Okay. Thank you for that. I'll immediately go to members. Do you have questions? I see sequence I've seen are Councillor O'Brien, followed by Councillor Whittam, Councillor O'Brien, and then followed by Councillor Whitehead. Councillor O'Brien, you may ask your question.
I think I'm about to ask Cass' question. Was there anything more that you wanted to tell us about this development?
Well, my last sentence was going to be, we're also considering the embodied carbon and ethical selection of all materials, so not just the superstructure. That was actually my last sentence.
Chair, if I may, I did actually have a proper question as well. If I could just ask, the ballot that was that went out to residents, I mean, you know, full marks for doing that. I see that there's a reduction in the number of car parking spaces, and generally we don't promote car parking spaces, but the existing residents are probably used to having them. Was that part of the conversation with residents? Are they happy to have that their car, the number of parking bays reduced to the numbers? Are they cool with that? It was all right for me to answer this one. It was an in-depth conversation with all the residents. We also sort of went door to door when we were allowed to do that, and really presented the plans. And I think a lot of residents, there was this sort of toss up between maximising garden, green space, planting and allotments and parking spaces. And we were really open with residents of the pros and cons of that. And I think it's something that people were on board with. Some people didn't want to see any parking at all, but some obviously wanted to see some retained. So that's where we sort of ended up with the numbers. There was a sort of an assessment of people who had storage in the pram sheds, people who had a garage, and also people who had a car. And then we sort of worked out what the needs were. So as well as the housing need, it was also residents' additional need, which is also why we've got some storage space within the new tower to make up for storage that's lost from loss of garages and pram sheds. So it was sort of a combined analysis of what everybody had at the moment and what they'll need in the future.
Okay,
thank you. So it won't come as a surprise to them. Thank you, Chair.
No.
That's okay. Now, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, I've agreed that at the turn of each hour, we'll take a 5-minute break. It is past, and I know that we get on to the other speakers, we'll need to go beyond that time. So we'll take a 5-minute break now, and we will return at 25 to 8.